She walked alone late at night after work. Suddenly, a man held her arm and told her, "Hurry up." She didn't know he was a very rich business owner, a CEO. Under the shaky light of the street lamp, Christine's breath showed in the cold night air. She had just left the restaurant, the glass door closing softly behind her, its sound quickly lost in the quiet street. Her watch showed 12:46 a.m. The city was sleeping. Only the faint noise of cars far away and the wind blowing trash reminded her that time kept going. She pulled her coat tighter and fixed the strap of her old cloth bag. Her shoes made soft scraping sounds on the wet path as she turned left into the small alley, a quicker way she had used many times before. 7 minutes until home. She believed she just needed to get through the alley. Then 2 blocks past the shut pharmacy, and she would be at her flat. But this night felt different. A quiet sound, then the soft, steady sound of footsteps. Christine's heart beat fast. "It's probably just someone else going home," she softly said to herself, forcing a little laugh, trying to get rid of the worry growing inside her. But the footsteps didn't go away. They got louder, more even, walking at her pace. No, not just matching. They were like a shadow that wasn't hers. She walked slower. They did too. She walked faster. They kept following her. Too near. A cold feeling ran down her neck. She put her hand in her coat pocket, her fingers touching the edge of her phone. But before she could get it, a hand strongly grabbed her wrist. "Let go of me!" she yelled, trying to pull free. Her voice was loud and scared, but the man's hold was steady. His voice, deep and ordering, broke through her shout. "Walk faster, don't look back." Her heart hit hard against her chest. She could hardly breathe. The man wore a dark hooded top, his head down, his face hidden by dark areas. She couldn't see his eyes, only the shine of city light on his jawline. He breathed quickly, not because he was scared. It sounded calm, like he was ready, like he had done this before. "Please, please don't hurt me," she softly begged, her voice shaky. He didn't answer. He didn't squeeze her wrist tighter, but he also didn't let go. He began walking, pulling her along, his steps fast and clear. Christine struggled to keep up, every part of her body torn between running away and being very scared. The alley got smaller, darkness growing with each step. There were no windows here, no ways out, just wet brick walls, one shaky light behind them, and a feeling of deep fear that held Christine's throat tight. New waitress gone after night work. Body found in alley. Person responsible not known. These news titles quickly came to her mind like a mean trick. Her legs wanted to run, but her mind couldn't tell them to. His hold, though strong, didn't hurt. It wasn't rough. He wasn't hitting her. He wasn't shouting. But the quiet was worse. He just kept walking. Why? Why was he not doing anything? Why hadn't he pulled her into the dark or taken out a weapon? She tried to see his face again, but the view in the dark showed her nothing. Only the steady feel of his hand on her wrist and the sound of 2 pairs of feet bouncing off the hard ground. Then a noise broke the quiet, a loud clank like metal hitting stone, a bottle rolling, glass scraping the street, opening a small window. His killer. Christine stopped completely, but the man held her tighter, quietly saying through tight teeth, "Keep walking." A quick blur of movement behind them, a dark shape rushing from the darker part of the alley, then disappearing down the street they had just walked across. Christine took a sharp breath, turning her head just in time to see the person vanish behind a big trash bin. The man let go of her wrist a little, not fully releasing it, but enough to make the hold lighter. Her chest moved up and down quickly. She couldn't think, couldn't talk. But for the first time since he took her, Christine felt a change. Fear still ran through her, but now it was not fear of the man next to her. It was fear of what could have happened if he wasn't there. She looked up at him again, and even though she still couldn't see his face clearly, she saw how his shoulders had tightened. Not like someone hunting, but like a guard, watching out, ready. And all at once, without knowing why, Christine stopped pulling away. Her hand relaxed a bit in his hold. She kept walking. Christine went after him, her feet moving quicker than her mind could process. The man didn't say anything more. He didn't look back at her. He simply walked, not pulling her now, but still holding her wrist as if he knew the moment he let go, she would run. They turned 2 corners quietly. The alley got wider. Streetlights came back, making light, safe circles on the broken path. The soft noise of a snack machine hummed close by, and the world began to show up again. He finally let go of her hand. Christine took a step back, holding her wrist tightly. Her breathing was uneven. Her heart had not yet calmed down. She looked at the man, half thinking he would disappear. But he didn't move. He just stood there, a dark shape against the far light of a shut laundry place, his face still hidden under his hood. "What? What just took place?" she asked, her voice very soft. He didn't reply. "Who was that?" she asked more strongly. "Was he following me? Do you know him?" Still no answer. "Do you?" This time he spoke. His voice was deep, steady, careful. "He has been watching you for many days." Christine's mouth dropped open. "What?" The man turned a little, just enough for the dim light to hit the side of his face. His jaw was tight, his lips set in a hard line. "Same way, same hour, same shoes, same plan." "How do you—" she began, but he stopped her with a look, not mad, but firm, hard to understand. "You should stop using that alley," he said. "You were watching me too," she quickly said. "Do you think that's less scary?" His head moved a little. "That's why I followed him." Christine felt the ground move under her feet. It was too much, too fast. Her legs felt weak, but she stayed standing, arms folded tightly over her chest. "You're not making sense. Who are you? What do you want?" "I want nothing," he said. "Just be safe." And then he turned. "No, wait." Christine stepped forward, but he was already walking away, going back into the dark areas he came from. Not running, not hiding, just vanishing into the night as if he fit there. Christine stood still under the street lamp, her skin still feeling odd where his hand had held her. Her breathing was now steady, but her mind was still racing. She looked around at the street, the buildings, the silent empty space of everything. For the first time in a long while, the city felt strange. She wasn't sure what had just occurred. A stranger had held her, pulled her through the dark, spoken in puzzles, and then disappeared. Did he rescue her, or had she just gotten out of one problem only to walk into another? But then she recalled the sound, the clink of metal, the person running behind them, the way the man had put himself a little in front of her, his hold getting firmer, not to rule, but to keep safe. She remembered his voice when he said, "He was nearer than I believed." He had been watching, but not her. Not truly. Christine stood there for a long period, her heart rate slowly becoming normal again. She rubbed her wrist and went towards home, her eyes quickly checking every dark spot, every door. When she reached her street corner, she stopped and looked back down the alley. It was empty, but she couldn't get rid of the feeling that someone was still observing. She walked the rest of the path quietly. Christine sat opposite the police officer, her hands holding the side of the metal chair as she told him every small point she could recall. The small alley, the dark shape behind her, the man who took her, and the one who ran away. The officer listened, nodding sometimes, typing without showing much emotion. "There's no video," he finally stated. "No cameras in that alley. No one saw it. You said the man who helped you never told his name." She shook her head. "Well, we will write a report, but with no more information, there's not much we are able to do. If someone follows you again, call right away. Don't face them." Christine left the police station, feeling worse than when she came. At work, things were no better. Her colleague Beth leaned closer as Christine cleaned a counter. "Are you all right? You look like you've seen a spirit." Christine paused. "I think someone tried to follow me home the other evening." Beth lifted an eyebrow. "You think, or are you just feeling overly worried? You've been working too many late hours." "I am serious," Christine stated. "Someone was present. 2 individuals, in fact. One of them, I don't know what he was. He seized me, but then he might have rescued me." Beth's small smile faded. "Rescued you?" Christine nodded. "He said I was being watched, that someone had been trailing me, and you trusted him." "I am unsure." Beth gave her a long gaze. "Be careful, Christine. It sounds like he is the person you should be scared of. But Christine could not stop thinking about it. She could not stop sensing it. There were small details, the sound of footsteps behind her that vanished the moment she turned, the sight of eyes in a dark pane, a car waiting just a bit too long across the road from her flat. She changed her way home. She walked in bright places, took the longer path, and completely stayed away from the alley. She started leaving work sooner, checking twice that no one was behind her. She began locking the door 2 times, even during the day. The hardest part was not the fear. It was the unsureness, the bothering, hurting doubt. Had she just thought it all up? Was her mind playing games with her, or was someone still looking? One evening, as she came out of the drugstore with a bag of food items, she saw him once more. The man. He stood near a shut bus stop under a rusty cover, arms crossed, hood up. He didn't stir, just stood there like a figure from a vision. Her heart beat hard, but this time she did not run. She walked across the street and went directly to him. He did not move suddenly. "You," she said, stopping a short distance away, "why do you keep appearing?" He did not answer. "You trailed me. You held me. You stated someone was seeking me, then you vanished. Who are you?" He looked straight forward, his voice deep. "It is not Key." "Not Key?" Christine moved nearer. "Are you a kind of protector who chose himself? Do you think you are aiding others?" He stayed quiet. "Or perhaps you are concealing something," she went on, her anger growing. "Perhaps you are not the brave person. Perhaps you are the one I should be scared of. You are always there, always observing. What are you truly attempting to do?" He finally gazed at her, and then he sat down on the seat behind him as if her words had taken the power from his legs. His shoulders dropped, his eyes all at once not dark, but empty. "I am not a brave person," he said softly. "I am just a very bad brother." Christine took a sharp breath. She was not expecting that. He did not look at her. He looked at the ground, his hands held together between his knees. Christine's anger slowly left her chest, taken over by something different, something heavier and more sorrowful. She stood there for a long period, not knowing what to say. Then gently, she sat down next to him. He did not move away. Neither of them talked. The city made a soft, distant noise, and at that moment, 2 unknown people, linked by darkness and quiet, sat side by side under a shaky street lamp. They began seeing each other again, not by accident this time, but by a quiet, unsaid understanding. No future meetings were planned, yet somehow their roots met under the same streetlights. At first, it was short, a small head movement from across the road, a quiet walk to the next corner. But it grew into more. They would walk together late at night, sometimes through well-known areas, sometimes to new spots Christine had never seen before. He showed her the place where free meals are given, where he sometimes helped out. She brought extra food from the restaurant and gave it to the same man without a home who always waited near the park seat. They never spoke about what occurred, not right away. Instead, they allowed the quiet between them to become gentler, not harder. Christine found herself paying more attention, even when no words were said. And Liam, though he seldom spoke much, started looking her in the eyes more often, as if seeking something, or perhaps releasing something. One evening they sat on the broad stone steps of an old book building that had been shut for a long time for repairs. The air was fresh, fall slowly arriving as summer ended. The city made a soft noise far away, quieter because of the calm side street they had discovered. Liam looked forward, his voice deep and steady. Her name was Sophie. She was 16 years old, he stated. She walked home one evening only a few blocks. She never got there. No one aided her. No one telephoned. Everyone heard her yelling, but they just closed their windows. Quiet. Christine turned to him. She liked lemon sweets, he mentioned, a slight smile touching his lips, though his eyes did not smile with it. And old stories. She had this thought that she would write one day, a long story. I still have the first part she printed, full of word mistakes and people named after her most loved cartoon. Christine remained silent. She was returning home from a friend's special day. Only 5 blocks, but it was dark and she never arrived. Someone followed her, hurt her. She shouted. His jaw grew tight. No one opened their entrances. No one even called for support until morning. "I am very sorry," Christine said gently. "I was meant to pick her up," he softly said, "but I forgot. I was at a gathering, some silly event for making contacts. I didn't even look at my phone until it was too late." The quiet that came next was not the same. It was not cold or uncomfortable. It felt holy. "I began walking the roads after that," he stated. "Not only for her, but for every girl walking home by herself, every unknown person who might need someone to care." Christine felt the importance of his words sink into her chest. The hidden pains he carried were not the type you could see, but they were profound, and they affected everything he did. Some evenings later, rain fell. They went quickly under the roof of a closed bookshop, water pouring down like thin layers just a short distance from their feet. Christine was very wet. So was Liam, though he did not seem to be aware. She took tissues from her coat pocket and softly wiped the water from his forehead. He did not move suddenly. He simply looked at her, truly looked at her, and something in his gaze became softer. She smiled, but it was unsure. "You do not need to do this by yourself." He said nothing. "You are not to blame for every bad event that happens globally," she went on. "You do not have to bear it all on your own." She reached out and held his wrist softly, reminding of that evening in the alley, but switching the parts. Her fingers wrapped around his just enough to be felt. "You do not need to guard the world," she repeated, her voice just a bit louder than the rain. "Just let someone guard you for one time." For a short time he did not stir. Then slowly he smiled, a soft, quick smile, one that did not hold sadness or difficulty. He did not talk. He did not pull back. The uneasy feeling came back. Christine could feel it again, the unseen weight, the way dark areas seemed to stay a moment too long, the sudden cold feeling down her back when she walked alone. She had wished it was just overthinking, the memory of old fear, but Liam did not believe that. They sat together on a seat near the park's edge, evening making long, dark shapes across the path. "He is still out there," Liam stated softly, his eyes checking the street ahead. "Same person, same way of doing things. I have seen him 2 times near the restaurant this week." Christine's throat felt tight. "Then we must act." Liam looked at her, his jaw firm. "We will, but with care." The plan was basic, yet risky. Christine would walk her usual path home, using the same alley at the same hour. Liam would trail at a distance, this time observing not her, but the dark spots. They had already told a police contact about what they thought. Police members would be close by, waiting for a sign. It was dangerous, but Christine would not let herself be chased any longer. That evening, she came out of the restaurant alone. Each step made a louder sound than normal. Her hands shook, but she kept walking just as they had set out. The alley appeared large ahead, thin, wet, poorly lit. She stopped only once before going inside. Then she heard it, footsteps behind her, quicker this time, nearer. She turned just as a person jumped from the dark. But before the man could get to her, Liam was there, showing up like a dark shape himself, stopping the one who attacked with a strong push. A quick fight began. Christine screamed as the man took out a knife, cutting wildly. Liam moved to avoid, but not fast enough. The sharp part hit his side, a sudden, unpleasant sound. Liam nearly fell. "No!" Christine yelled, rushing ahead. She seized the attacker's arm, trying to pull him away. He pushed her forcefully, but she did not drop. She held on, fighting with all the power she had. Then loud alarms, blue and red lights, shone at the alley's opening. Police members gave orders loudly. The attacker tried to flee, but a police officer brought him to the ground before he moved 5 steps. Christine fell to her knees next to Liam. His breathing was heavy. Blood went through his shirt. "I am here for you," she softly said, pushing her hands onto his side. "Stay with me, please. Just stay with me." Later, inside the ambulance, the police explained what they had discovered. The man had a past history. He was sought in another state for trying to hurt someone. He had disappeared months ago, moving between towns, secretly following women, searching for simple victims. Christine had been his newest goal. "He confessed it," one officer said sternly. "He intended to steal from you and do worse." Christine's stomach felt ill, her sight unclear. Liam had rescued her again, and this time he had almost passed away for it. She reached for his hand, holding it firmly as the ambulance rushed towards the medical center, tears streaming down. She did not mind who he was. She did not mind how strong or rich or puzzling he might be. For her, at that moment, he was the single most important person in the world. Christine's hands were trembling as she held the blood-covered cloth to Liam's side, her own garments marked red. He was leaning against her in the back of the taxi, not awake, lips light in color, breathing softly. Her voice shook as she yelled at the driver to speed up, her mind barely able to make clear thoughts. When they arrived at the urgent care area, nurses quickly came to them right away, but Christine would not release him until someone physically took her off. Her fingers were stiff from dried blood, her heart beating loudly in her ears as they moved Liam out of view behind 2 doors. A nurse came back with a paper holder. "We need his complete name and any past health details if you are aware of them." Christine closed her eyes briefly. "His name is Liam. That is all I am aware of." The nurse made a worried face. "Family name? I do not." She paused, reaching for her phone, looking very hard for anything that could assist. That was when a doctor showed up, reading the admission notes and quietly saying, "Liam Carter." Christine stopped completely. She recognized that name. Everyone did. Liam Carter, a powerful person in technology, a very rich man who kept to himself, the creator of Carter Tech, a supporter of good causes, a kind giver of money, the person who stayed away from cameras, said no to talks, and built a large tech business while staying fully hidden from public view. And he had been walking her home at late night, wrapping up wounds of unknown people, giving out meals, pulling her from small paths, and now losing blood onto her lap. Her breath stopped in her throat. "It is him," she softly said, as the world moved under her feet. "Yes," the nurse responded kindly. "Do you wish to be noted as his urgent contact?" Christine agreed without a second thought. The time went by very fast. She sat in a stiff plastic seat, her fingers wrapped around the edge of her coat, going over everything again. The rain, the strolls, his tales, his quietness, his hurt. Why would a man like him pick this kind of life? Why her? She was just a server. He was... But the blood on her hands was not riches. It was not control. It was a giving up of something. And that answered the question she kept asking herself. She cared for him deeply. By morning, the medical staff let her enter. Liam was still not awake, connected to machines, thin pipes coming from his arms. His face was light in color, his breathing still light, but regular. Christine brought the seat near his bed, sat down, and took his hand in hers. She did not go for 2 days. She held his hand, spoke to him gently, and slept in brief, interrupted times, fearing he might disappear if she shut her eyes too long. On the second evening, she wept. Deep, painful cries quieted into the bend of her arm because she could not imagine not hearing his voice once more. Just before sunrise, his fingers moved. Then his eyelids quickly moved. Christine sat straight up, her eyes open wide. "Liam," she softly said, her hand holding his more tightly. He slowly began to move, then looked at her, confused, blinking, as if he was unsure if she was truly there. And then his hand held hers more firmly. "May?" His voice broke. "May? Are you well?" Tears ran down her face. "I am well," she stated, nodding. "You are the one in a hospital bed, and you are inquiring about me?" He gave her the smallest smile. "Of course I am." She leaned forward, putting her forehead against his. "I thought I had lost you." "You did not," he softly said. "You never will." They stayed that way for a long period, the machines making soft sounds around them, the city outside the window starting to awaken. And then, without any formal act, without asking, he raised his hand to her face, wiped away a tear, and kissed her. It was not done quickly or in an overly emotional way. It was tender, true, a pledge made not with talk, but with the calm knowledge that neither of them had to be single anymore. 3 months had gone by since that evening at the medical center, but for Christine, it still felt alive in her heart as if it had occurred just yesterday. Sometimes she would find herself recalling it all, the alarms, the blood, the way Liam had gazed at her when he became conscious, and it would bring a surge of feeling so intense she would need to stop and calm her breathing. That evening had shown the end of fear, of being alone, and of questioning if someone like her would ever discover something as true and strong as love. A new period had started, not just on the yearly planner, but in her existence. The dark spots that once stayed at the edges of her life had changed to gentle light and calm assurance. The nights without sleep and the dark, haunting narrow paths were gone. The quiet pain of always walking home by herself was gone. Now she lived her days with clear goals, simple understanding, and the deep peace of knowing she no longer had to meet the world alone. Christine now had a job as Liam's personal helper at Carter Tech. It was a big change from the restaurant, where she had spent years learning customers' usual orders and managing 3 work times, but she quickly adjusted. The business world was quick and neat, but she brought her steady pace and kindness into every job. She did not try to impress with fancy words or expensive clothes. She showed up as herself, and that true nature was more shining than anything else. Co-workers instantly felt friendly towards her. She made an effort to learn everyone's name, remembered special days of birth, and never ignored anyone's thoughts. Her laughter, once not often heard, now moved through the rooms like a well-known song. With Liam, things were stable. They kept their tie quiet, not because they felt bad, but out of honor. There were no big acts in the break room, no soft words of love in gatherings, but for anyone who noticed, the bond between them was clear. Liam's face became gentle when she walked into the room, his whole way of acting changing slightly. He paid attention to her ideas during meetings, he trusted her decisions, and when their eyes met from across the room, there was always something shared, something unsaid but fully understood. Liam, once seen as the strong and private leader of Carter Tech, had become different, not in the way people worried about when a powerful person finds love, but in the way someone gets better when they are finally safe. He smiled more often. He stayed a bit longer in relaxed talks. He started guiding younger workers, giving them true time and useful suggestions. He asked his group to eat lunch in the garden on the roof, laughed at funny comments, and even joked back. People saw the change, but more than that, they saw Christine, and instead of feeling bitter towards her, they respected her for what she had gone through, and for the good influence she clearly brought to Liam's world. One late afternoon, Christine was by herself in the meeting room, finishing up points from a main group discussion. The area was quiet, most workers having already left for home. The sky outside was colored with shades of yellow and pink, the sinking sun putting a warm glow across the shiny table and her book. She was collecting her items when the door behind her opened. Liam walked in, his hands in his pockets. He seemed calm, but there was a different look in his eyes, a touch of uncertainty that was not common for him. "Hello?" he stated. His voice relaxed, but his stare did not leave her. "Hello," she answered, giving a little smile. "Just finishing up. I will send the summary soon." He did not speak right away. Instead, he moved to the middle of the room and paused, standing before her for a short time. Neither of them shifted. "I have been considering something," he finally said, his voice now more gentle. Christine leaned her head, a sign of interest in her eyes. "What is that?" He put his hand into his coat and took out a small soft box, and then, without saying anything, he knelt down on one knee. Christine took a sharp breath, completely still. "I discovered you in the dark," Liam mentioned, looking up at her, his voice firm but full of feeling. "But you brought brightness to my world." He opened the box to show a simple, graceful ring. Nothing fancy, just classic and true. "Will you be my brightness always?" Christine's hand went quickly to her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. Her heart grew so fast she felt it might break open. She could only nod at first, then softly said, "Yes." Then once more strongly, "Yes." Liam stood up, sliding the ring onto her finger, and put his arms around her. They stood there in the quiet golden glow of the empty room, holding each other as if all that was important was already in their embrace. Two spirits, once lost in the dark, now discovered together in the light. The sun shone through the trees in soft beams, making golden light over the small garden hidden behind a property covered in ivy just outside the city. It was the type of lovely time of day photographers wish for, where everything shines gently and the air itself seems to pause. The garden was still, special in its plainness. White roses stood along the path, their soft parts slowly opening under the warm light, and tiny sparkling lights shone in the bushes as evening slowly arrived. A gentle wind moved the leaves above, carrying the smell of jasmine and fresh soil. It felt as if the whole world had picked this time to stop and see something positive. It was not a huge wedding. There were no big news stories, no bright lights flashing, no fancy dresses for style books to judge. This was not a big show. It was a promise, calm, very personal, and truly human. There were only the people who were truly important, and in their view, this moment shined more brightly than any large dance hall. Christine stood under a plain arch made with wild flowers, her hand resting in Liam's. Her gown shone with gentle silver threads, capturing the light with every slight shift. It was fancy but not too showy, just like her. Her bright hair flowed in soft curls over her shoulders, touched by the sun and moved by the wind. Liam stood beside her, wearing a timeless dark blue suit, neat and fresh. But it was not the way the suit was made that made him special. It was the way he looked at her, as if he had been waiting his entire life for this instant. In the first row sat Christine's mother, her eyes slightly wet with happiness as she held a fabric cloth in her lap. Beside her were co-workers from Carter Tech, some in suits, others dressed more simply, all smiling kindly. Many of them looked at Liam with quiet wonder. This was the person they worked with daily, now shown in a way few had ever witnessed. Among those present were individuals who did not wear suits at all. Some wore old, worn jackets and scratched shoes, but their eyes gleamed the most. These were men and women whose paths had crossed with Christine and Liam's in peaceful, important ways. People who were once unknown but had received help without any fuss, now standing here as respected visitors. When the person leading the ceremony moved back, nodding with a soft smile, Liam turned to Christine and took both her hands. His voice was deep, meant only for her. "From this moment forward," he softly said as he gently put the ring onto her finger, "you will never need to walk that narrow path by yourself again." Christine's breath paused. Her eyes became full as she held his hand tightly with both of hers and softly said back, "Because I will always have you." The clapping increased gently, showing respect and full of kindness. But Christine hardly heard it. All she observed was Liam, the man who had pulled her from fright, from shadows, and into a life she had nearly stopped trusting in. Together they turned and walked back along the path, hand in hand. White flower pieces floated in the air like good wishes. The garden burst into soft giggles and tunes. But in the middle of everything were just two individuals who had struggled their way towards brightness and found it within each other. No longer held by the dark, they stepped into the light together. If this story reached your feelings, made you pause and wonder, or reminded you that strong affection can grow even in the most hidden, sad places, then we ask you to stay with us for more. At Soul-Stirring Stories, we offer you narratives that mend, encourage, and stay with you long after the display turns dark. Narratives of humble, good people, of affection discovered in unexpected spots, of care that transforms lives. Join now to be part of a group that trusts in the strength of telling stories, the type that moves your inner self, because sometimes the narrative you did not foresee is the one you required the most.